The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development recently released a tax expenditure report covering 2020 and 2021, indicating that over 5 trillion of tax revenue was lost to various tax incentives and holidays to maintain foreign investors. A joint report by Siatini and the USAID has highlighted shortcomings in the manner the tax expenditure report by the Ministry of Finance is structured, saying it does not clearly highlight government's gains for the revenue foregone and who benefits, and whether such an outcome has any return to investment to Uganda.
There should be thresholds set in terms of the maximum amount of money that can be foregone through tax expenditures in a particular year, the kind of sectors that should be benefiting, having a cost-benefit analysis as from the expenditures that from the revenue that we are foregoing. For instance, how are we benefiting socially? How are those benefits being accrued to the citizens in terms of healthcare, social services?
Dixon Kateshumbwa, the Shema municipality legislator, says the Ministry of Finance needs to evaluate and assess whether government and the country benefit from the process.
As a country, we need to evaluate. Politically, we are under pressure to create jobs, to create employment. So you find government making decisions. Let's get manufacturers in, let's give them tax holidays, which is okay, it's debatable, but we should be able to evaluate over a period of time what have we benefited vis-a-vis what has been foregone.
Kateshumbwa says this strains the budget and calling for supplementary budgets to manage interests of loans to projects. He says the country has invested heavily in tax expenditure by giving tax holidays to fake investors, which exposes judgment and intention of Ministry of Finance officials as far as Uganda's strategic interests are concerned.
But what it is now, I think sometimes investors find their way in offices and then they get promises, sometimes exemptions that are irrational. That is something that we need to streamline as a country, because some investors will end up lying, like we have seen, that they can do something when they are not. We have seen investors who get land and then mortgage it to get capital to invest. That is not an investor.
Activists say the government needs to come up with a tax expenditure governance framework and a fiscal committee with all stakeholders to streamline the tax expenditure.
Fiscal committee that comprises multi-stakeholders, including development partners, the National Planning Authority, Ministry of Finance, Uganda Revenue Authority, representatives from Parliament, among others, as well as civil society, to see to it that the tax expenditures that, or the revenue that we forego as a result of tax expenditures is actually holistically looked into.
The USAID representative, Kieran Holmes, says government needs to opt for a low corporate tax rate.
And a lower tax rate has a number of incentives, a number of advantages, I should say, over other incentives, in the sense that a lower tax rate means that tax is always paid, returns are always filed, and corporates, companies, or even sole traders get to keep more of their money, and that's available for reinvestment in which, of course, is productive and which is very likely to increase employment.
Adams Mayambala, CTV, PM Edition.